Welcome to the Medical Report podcast, where we bring health to your ears. We are your hosts, Zinzele, Olu, and I am Anita. Our podcast hopes to bring the community more information about health, and we do have a disclaimer that all medical advice shared here is not an adequate means to diagnose or treat you. We recommend that you seek medical attention from your healthcare provider if you want more guidance on your health. If anyone in the audience has any questions, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments and we will answer it in our Q&A segment later in the show. If you're watching this after our live show ends, also feel free to ask your questions as well. We'll still get back to you. Also, be sure to like and share this video. We want to feel the love. And, we just need the love. So, exactly, all the love. How's everybody's week been?
Olu, you first.
No, ladies first. After
I
you.
am in North Carolina, and I'm visiting my father and mother and relaxing. So I am on location way out here from California.
Cool.
That's
I'm just
fun.
coming back from vacation, Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
Yes.
Ooh.
What was your favorite part?
Not being here.
Less work, more relaxation, right?
Finally able to take a break after 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I haven't been anywhere in 2 years.
Use that PTO, please.
Yeah.
Wow.
COVID and everything.
Yeah, that too. Well, my week's just been pretty normal, work and momming it, per usual. But I'm excited about today's podcast, though.
Right?
Today we're talking about medical cannabis. So, with approximately 22.2 million users each month, cannabis is the most commonly used illegal drug. I say in parentheses, debating on what state you're living in currently. Cannabis is currently recognized by the DEA as a Schedule 1 controlled substance, which means it's classified as having a high potential for abuse and lack of safety data exists for the use of treatment under medical supervision currently. Currently, there are controversies surrounding the legal, ethical, and societal implications associated with the use of cannabis, and many worry about the safety of administration, dispensing, and adverse health events of cannabis. According to the CDC, research shows that 1 in 10 users will become addicted, and that number increases to 1 in 6 if the user begins using cannabis before the age of 18. Cannabis can affect the parts of the brain that affect memory, learning, attention, coordination, emotions, and reaction time. Long-term and frequent use of cannabis has also been linked to increased risk of psychosis and schizophrenia. But according to the Pew Research Center, a poll conducted in April of 2021 found that 91% of U.S. adults say cannabis should be legal for medical and recreational use nationwide. Currently, 36 states have approved medical cannabis use, and 18 of those states allow for cannabis to be used for medical and recreational use. Cannabis continues to gain popularity, and that makes it way more important for us to educate the community about safe use of cannabis. So today we have 2 guests to help us learn more about it, and we are so excited to have them on. Right now, a number of patients use medical cannabis bud tenders, which are who we find in these CBD stores when we go and currently purchase cannabis. To recommend, we rely on them to recommend current type and dose of cannabis. But we want you to know that there are certified medical experts out there for this as well. So that brings us to our first guest. Our first guest is a certified family nurse practitioner. She's certified in cannabis. She's a cannabis nurse consultant. She also teaches her patients how to safely use cannabis by educating them on the correct type, route, and dosage of cannabis. And we want to welcome Miss Rosalind Jordan of Epiphany's
Hi.
Fortune Wellness show. Hi, Miss
Hi,
Rosalind.
Rosalind.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Thanks for coming and joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how often are you seeing patients that are using cannabis?
I have my own business, Epiphany's Fortune, where I consult clients who are currently using medical marijuana. because Florida is not legal except for medical marijuana, or those who are using CBD. So I do counsel them on my own, and that's my business. But my main job, I do have patients who are under medical marijuana with no guidance whatsoever. I want to say first that no one can prescribe; they certify, and so because it's Schedule One, they certify marijuana. But there's no guidance given. So they
Right.
say, "Oh, okay, you have this chronic condition," and I'll give example of patient. She has Parkinson's. Okay, you have Parkinson's, you qualify for this qualifying condition to have medical marijuana. So here you go to the dispensary. She's
Mm-hmm.
80
That's
years
how it
old
works. That's it.
and she has no idea.
That's
She's
it.
cannabis naive. She has no idea what to do. And they told her to get the wax. She's 80 years old. She doesn't know what wax is. She doesn't know what vaping is. She doesn't know what any of this stuff
Right.
is. And they're trying to sell her this stuff. And she's like, what in the world? Um, so it's a lot of education has to be given to patients about which route is best for them, how
What are the
much to
different
use.
routes?
So there's the flower, which is the actual,
The
flower
bud.
itself, where you can grind and smoke. There is vaping, which is the oil that you use a device to smoke. There's the wax that you can put into either um, a vaping pen, or you can kind of put it on like on a bong to smoke. There's also edibles. There's topicals. There's patches.
Yeah.
It's so many
It's so
variations,
many.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're naive. Or on the flip side, you have your hippies who can tell you more about marijuana than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it all varies, and then people are very concerned. One, they're in pain. Two, they don't want to be on opioids. So they're really concerned. They don't want to live in pain. And
Right.
pain causes depression. So so they do come to us for guidance.
What are common ailments or diagnoses that you find yourself prescribing medical cannabis for? So if the patient comes into you and they say, "Hey, is this appropriate for me?" based on whatever diagnosis, what diagnosis do you usually?
Okay, so usually, and every state is different. So Florida is chronic pain, chronic conditions, um, debilitating conditions like the Parkinson's, cancer, chronic pain that can't be treated with opioids, or they're maxed out on their opioids.
Any
And they have to
mental
like
health conditions?
mental health, anxiety, not so much depression. I haven't seen, but depression can be treated with cannabis.
Okay.
Um, Schizophrenia, you kind of, it's a fine line, and that person has to be really monitored. Um, but that's not a qualifying condition in Florida. So,
Okay. Okay.
but it's a lot of. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying go ahead.
Oh, okay. Um, but usually chronic pain, anxiety, um, depression, and that's what they use for the medical marijuana. Now, there's also cannabis is a big umbrella. So cannabis is marijuana, it's Delta 8, it's CBD, it's all the variations of the plant. That's what's under cannabis. So those who do not want to use medical marijuana or have federal jobs and can't, use the full spectrum, they can use like the broad spectrum CBD, which doesn't have the THC in it, um, and still help with their pain and help with their anxiety or help with sleep.
What are the differences between those CBD, THC that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so CBD helps attach to the CB2 receptors, more of the body inflammation. Um, It's a slower treatment uh, for pain or anxiety. THC, of course, is going to be immediate. You're gonna feel it. It's going to stop
That's
the
basically
pain.
more or less like the head high.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes. And so most people who aren't interested in the marijuana, medical marijuana portion, they do opt to use CBD.
So if you basically don't want that high feeling, because there's a lot of people that are considering it, but they don't want to be high. So they
Right.
need to understand that they need to stay away from medical marijuana that has THC in it and focus more on the
Correct.
CBD.
Or there are products in the dispensary that have like a higher CBD ratio,
And a
so they
very
won't. So they kind of cancels them out pretty much, and so kind of stops that high. And when you mention a head high, there are two types of there's indica, there's the sativa. So and then there's a hybrid as well. So sativa is more head high, indica is more body high. Hybrid, it depends if it's more sativa leaning or indica leaning. Um, and then with that, patients have to kind of play with it, and see what's best for them. And also microdose. That's important. And that's what I see a lot of the patients that go to these dispensaries. They get hit with the high dose and they hate it. And I don't like this feeling. Or they get on gummies and they don't teach them to
Yeah.
cut those gummies up, and they take the whole gummy and they are on that trip until that gummy
Gummy
is
comes out.
gone,
Yeah.
you
Till it
know.
runs out.
I
Yeah.
have a
So,
I have
you know,
a I have a question regarding indica and sativa. Can you kind of elaborate on the difference, and would you prescribe, one versus the other for this condition or that condition?
so indica's like more for pain, anxiety, and more for sleep as well. So those, like, if you like really high anxiety, like really up here, you need to calm down. Like indica would be more appropriate. Sativa can also help with pain, but if you don't want to go to sleep, if you don't want to, be in bed all day, that will give your head high. Or those who have ADD, that sativa kind of keeps them more focused.
Yeah, I've been using indica for years for my daughter who has autism, and it has been the only thing that we have found to help her sleep. Without it,
Mhm.
she would stay up till about 2 in the morning, and then wake up at 4, 5, and now she sleeps a good minimum 5 to 6 hours at least.
Oh wow, it's
So
awesome.
it's that indica has been a blessing. I'm telling you, it has.
And
Um,
and I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had a question more about how you use it. It's Would you say, or what's really the difference between edibles and smoking it? Is it like, do you get the effects faster, one versus the other? Do you get more effects with edibles or less? Like, what's really the difference between how you actually bring it into your body and how
Okay,
it
so
affects
with
you?
smoking, whether vaping or flower, you will get the immediate like relief
Hmm.
or effects of it. With edibles, it can take up to an hour or maybe 2 hours, depending on the person's um, body.
Tolerance. Mhm.
So, like when it hits and you have too much, you are stuck.
So
So
is the
you are
effect, is it longer with edibles? Like,
longer, and then however long it's in your system, you are stuck with it
mm,
until it's
It
done,
wears off. Yeah.
till it wears off. Exactly. And that's why it's so important to teach patients, like, don't start with the whole 10 if you're going to get medical marijuana or Delta 8 even. Don't start with the whole gummy. You start with you cut in fours. and you kind of microdose and see how that makes you feel. You don't want to, take a whole gummy and then you're trying to drive somewhere and you can't figure out how to get there because because it's in your system. Some place you
Right,
have been to, know the back of your hand, but you can't figure out how to get there because the gummy's in your system, or you shouldn't be driving anyway with it, in your system
right.
anyway. But speaking of autism, there is one of my colleagues who uh, teaches about autism and CBD as well.
We'll talk after the broadcast.
Okay. Okay.
She's like, we need some more
I didn't know
information.
about that.
We
I
do
didn't
have
know.
a question. There are older people in a generation, where they're a lot older, and they still kind of see it as the get high, old school marijuana stoner. How do you kind of get them to move forward and progressive in their thinking about it being medical? And have you run across that?
Yes, and it's education. It's just education, and they get like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get high. So you want start with CBD and kind of give them education. Okay, CBD is not weed. It's not the old school weed. It won't
Right,
it whatever's wrong with you is gonna fix. So it's not there to make you start tripping or what have you. Speaking of um, old school marijuana, the ones who do medical marijuana and they think it's the old school marijuana, no, no, this is much stronger than what they're used to back in the 60s. So it's a lot of education.
Yeah, I
As
found that a
as
lot
for
of
oh
sorry,
sorry.
I
As for
found that
as
a lot of ladies first. Go ahead.
look. Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
as
Go ahead, Anita.
providers, we are constantly being mindful of adverse reactions when it comes to, with certain comorbidities that patients have. Are there certain patients with certain maybe already disease process like hypertension, diabetes, or whatever that should not take cannabis?
So it's more of the route
Okay.
versus using cannabis. So those who like with heart problems, hypertension, COPD, try to steer away from smoking. However, cannabis helps with inflammation. So if they have inflammation around their lungs, it still will help. But we try to kind of steer, not use as the
option.
first option of
Right.
route. And I have some who are using medical marijuana and they choose to smoke. So they have to bring their blood pressures to me and
Hmm.
indicate when they smoke next to their blood pressures. Because I want to know if it's affecting, if it's raising their blood pressure.
Okay. Oh, Lou, go ahead.
Um, what I was saying before, and then I have a question, was that I found that older people don't like the actual act of smoking. And so I usually encourage them to try edibles or something like that. But that's what I was going to say. But my question was in regards to like contraindications with other medications. Is there anything that you are not supposed to take along with cannabis?
So the main one is probably the warfarin, the Coumadin, not necessarily not to take it, but you need them to be monitored, especially if they're determined they're going to use cannabis. And then some, physicians or nurse practitioners say don't take it at all, but they're going to take it. So
Mhm.
you have to monitor them and just let them know you're on their side. You understand they're in pain. You understand they're or they have anxiety or they have depression, they have insomnia. So let's work with you and let's monitor your PTINR closely. Let's monitor, your labs, make sure that you are still being safe. Um, but constantly educate them.
So how do you go about getting a medical cannabis card for people that live in states where it's not legal?
Not legal at all.
I mean, I'm sure in Florida, you said in Florida it's not legal.
It's medical.
It's considered right medical cannabis. So if medical cannabis is available, how would
Hmm.
they go about getting a medical card?
Okay. So in Florida right now, MPs can't certify, so we have to refer them to a medical marijuana doc. And so we refer them to one, and they assess them, make sure you know they have a real problem. Um, and then once they get certified, they say okay, you have a qualifying condition. Now you can get your card, and it's around $250 for a card in Florida. Um, and then they go to the dispensaries, which have bud tenders, um, and they pick out their marijuana. So they usually tell them like, okay, well, you need this, you need the sativa, or you need the indica. So go tell them you need this. But they don't tell them, you know, what to take. They don't tell them like, okay, you can't be taking, you can't be dabbing, because they don't know what dabbing is. You can't be using a vape. You can't go and get 5 milligrams of gummies and take them. They don't break it down
So
for them.
explain dabbing for everybody.
So it's a wax, and it's either like have a pen, but like a dabbing pen, and like you kind of use it to. I think you smoke it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you put it like in the and you light it. Yeah, they don't know. You know,
Like,
no, not no,
I'm
not
like,
this.
I might be put it right here and you sniff
Not
it.
Des, That's not it.
Oh, no.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it is need education, and they need to start with something very a smaller dose initially, especially if they're naive
Mhm.
to cannabis. But like I said, I got some that can teach a whole class on
Um,
marijuana. So
I have a question. Do you maybe you know the answer. Do insurances cover
no,
any of this?
no,
Mm.
no, they'll cover those opiates though.
Right?
Yes, of
Wow.
That
course.
come with all kind of other health risks.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's that I think that's what's most interesting to me is that people are so much more comfortable taking all these drugs and from the pharmacy with all of these side effects. But because of the history and the stigma around cannabis, they're still concerned with that, that don't have all the side effects that affect your kidneys and liver function and all these other pain
Hmm.
medications that impact all these other areas that can't be mixed with other medications.
Your GI system
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's amazing. So
What
I'm
are
glad
some
you're doing this.
adverse reactions that people have had?
with cannabis.
Yeah, like say if they're taking too much, because you definitely explained that microdosing is important.
Right.
So if you're taking an appropriate amount, they're likely not to have any side effects, right? Like
Right. So
bad side effects.
like so if and there's always side effects like you take well one let me put this out. You can never overdose on marijuana.
You're just
You,
gonna be
you know,
too high.
you're not going to be able to take the amount of marijuana to overdose. Um, but side effects can be paranoia if they take too much. Um, think like high anxiety, like panic attacks if they take too much. There is for those who like chronic heavy users, they have the hyperemesis, and they can't stop vomiting, or they have like really bad abdominal pain when they use every time they use marijuana.
Mm.
So but those are like for like chronic heavy users.
Right.
Um, uh, but the main thing is the hyperemesis, the paranoia, the anxiety, and that's why I just that whole feeling like you just on a roller coaster and you can't
You
get
want
off.
to get, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I
I
mean
always
that.
tell people if it gets to that point, go to sleep.
Yeah, go to sleep. Go to sleep. And so that can. when you give them too high of a dose, that can turn them off to it, and they're like, okay, I don't want this. This is bad. For me.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to bring you backstage now, and we're going to introduce our next speaker. We hope that you'll stay with us for the Q&A segment later.
yes.
Okay. We'll see you back in a bit. Okay.
All right. So now we have a new guest speaker. His name is Patrick Brown. Uh, Patrick has been farming on land that is family owned for generations in a small community called Hex Grove in southeastern Warren County, North Carolina. And the farm was established by his great grandfather, Byron C. Brown, in 1865. His father took it over. Reverend Dr. Arthur A. Brown was third generation. He continued raising livestock, growing vegetables, grain, tobacco until he retired. Patrick then picked it up from there, and Patrick graduated from Fayetteville State University armed with a degree in business administration and management, traveled all over the world as a federal contractor and federal employee, working alongside the USDA and other government agencies as an agricultural advisor in Afghanistan until 2011, while also managing his father's farm in 2014, after industrial hemp was legalized. Patrick did research with his late mother, Celeste C. Brown, over the next few years, germinated hemp seed, and is now the owner of Hempfinity and Brown Family Farm. Please welcome Patrick Brown.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hi,
Hi.
Patrick.
Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me today.
Of
All
course,
right.
we're excited.
So I'm glad to have you on. I tracked you down, found you, said, oh, gotta have this guy. So, first question for you. What is your stance on agriculture? Tell us a little bit about your farm and what you do.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. We are a regenerative agriculture farm now during my time as the fourth generation. I took over the property in 2013 upon my dad's retirement, as you mentioned. And since then, we were still growing commodity crops. Commodity crops are your traditional USDA supported agriculture programs, where there are corn, wheat, soybean, tobacco, which is in North Carolina, our cash crop at the time. And we grew those crops up until 2017. 2017, we started sitting down and trying to come up with ways that we could add to our farm soil by adding a regeneration process. And regeneration crops are crops that add to the soil and build the soil back up so that when we plant crops, they'll benefit us as well as the environment, which helps with, of course, global warming. It helps with the weather conditions and various aspects of high carbon processes for new programs that we may incorporate, which would be one of those industrial hemp, which is a form of cannabis. Also moringa, also comfrey, other organic vegetables that we grow. Industrial hemp is just one of the smallest crops that we grow, actually the smallest crop. Our farm right now is based mostly on organic vegetables and herbs. So we supply companies with herbs as well as our community with a program called a community supported agriculture program, better known as CSA. So we provide organic vegetables to the community once a week on a membership. The members of those membership, the customers of those memberships support the farm in the beginning of the year and pay up front. And in return, we guarantee that they would have fresh organic vegetables for 24 weeks out of the year. So that's the way that program works. With the industrial hemp cannabis program, we were able to create products and goods, and we're able to provide retail spaces, brick and mortar, with wholesale products, products that include salves, gummies,
All right.
lip balms,
Okay.
oils,
Okay.
and roll-on pens. Just a few items that we provide. We also create textile garments for large corporations in the textile industry. This year alone, we planted around 180 acres of industrial hemp fiber plants for the textile industries. Very large brands that are able to create hemp products from head to toe. So we are well rounded and well versed in agriculture, as well as providing economic development to our county by adding jobs and also education to the community. Just as the person that you had on as a guest that was speaking so much about education, once a person understands the endocannabinoid system of your body and the three genetically breakdowns of what the plant can do for your body, which is the CB1, CB2, and CB1 plus CB2. Once they understand that, they realize exactly what that plant can do for your body and what uh, ailments that a person may be dealing with, of what particular form of cannabis can help them with that. And that education piece we actually teach on our farm with workshops, and we travel all over the world and provide that education. We're very rounded in education. We studied this plant for about 4 years before we actually put one in the ground. So understanding development of the licenses to be able to grow in your state, understanding the regulatory commissions of your state, and understanding the longevity in the business to try to figure out, is this something that you're going to do for a long term, or to understand why exactly are you growing it as a farmer, because it's not supported by the government. And it's hard for non-traditional traditional farms to grow crops that are not supported by the government, because really the output costs of day-to-day operations does nowhere near outweigh the amount of profitability for cannabis that you can receive in the long term. Everything is a risk when it's dealing with industrial hemp cannabis. Until the FDA decides to support the product, every farmer that farms it or every dispensary that grows it is a risk. So you have to be business smart and understand that you can't just tie everything you have into this. As far as growing industrial hemp cannabis when you are a farmer. Um, so what we have to do is operate our farm on multiple facets of production. And that's what we are today.
You're currently in North Carolina, right?
We are from North Carolina all the way up to Washington, D.C. We have business dealings throughout those three states, North Carolina, Virginia, and Washington, D.C.
So what are the current cannabis laws in North Carolina?
Well, only program that is approved is the Industrial Hemp Pilot Program, which was initiated in 2014.
Okay.
And it looks like we're going to go to a federal regulation going into next year. I'm not for certain yet, but it looks like that's the way it's going to shape. The same thing that did to our sister state of Virginia, which basically lets us know that medical cannabis will go into effect sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
So, what differentiates hemp from the medical marijuana?
The threshold of the THC levels.
Okay.
With the industrial hemp, it takes a longer period of time for it to exceed the 0.3%. Also consists, of course, your genetic makeup of your plants. With the industrial hemp, we kind of only focus on the mother plant, where um, it it also still breaks down into three strands, which is your sativa, indica, and hybrids, which you can also crossbreed just like marijuana cannabis. But it's more so the THC
Okay.
differentiates the two.
Okay.
So, a question: if you say had an employer who tested you for these things, you would be okay if you took hemp.
If you can verify based on the certificate of analysis all the way to the grower to understand the genetic makeup of what plant was created to create your end product or whatever you may take, whether it be a topical or whether it may be a smokable. If you can trace that back to the grower of the genetics, that's the only way that you can verify whether or not that particular cannabis is below the threshold of 0.3%. not affect your drug testing.
So basically, don't just go buy it off the shelf and say, well, it's not
Abs-
THC.
Absolutely not. With just having the certificate of analysis, that is your standard tool to identify what's in your product. But you also have to identify exactly where or trace where that product originated.
With people not really being familiar with the background, I kind of see you, in the background and the forefront at the same time. So, with people not really being familiar with legislation and how it all works, and people out there fighting for this, what is that like? What goes on?
Well, just like you just mentioned, we're from the start to the finish, from the farm to the business to the processor to the retail to the advocate. We handle, or myself, I handle all of those facets. So it's better to understand that you have to identify what that product is going to be to the public and how to present that product to the public, and also to rely on the traceability of, hey, we're a start to finish business. So there's no middle person, there is no third party. What we provide is what you will receive based on the analysis of our testing, and then you have to lobby for these for your brand. You have to lobby for what you believe in order for it to be a business that you see.
Do you
Uh,
find that difficult as well, being a black male in the industry?
Well, I don't identify processes based on race. I feel that we are able to have some sort of inclusion in this process. Some states have included social equity programs that allow minorities to get into this space. But at the end of the day, I'm a farmer. I'm no different than a farmer that's of the Caucasian descent or African American descent. I identify my title as a farmer at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
I
We should all get a fair share. However, we don't, but we shouldn't allow that to stop us.
Exactly.
Yeah. My question was actually more in regards to how you grow. Like, could you kind of go through the cycle of when you start planting in the spring and when you actually harvest?
Okay, so for us, we grow indoor mostly on our CBD. For our outdoor crops or our row crops would consist of our fiber and grain production under industrial hemp cannabis. So for indoor, we could grow at any time of the year. We have multiple harvests indoor. We have about over 9,000 square foot of indoor space that we grow for our CBD products. We don't grow our CBD outdoors anymore due to the cross pollination effect from our plants that we grow for fiber and textile production, fiber textile production. So during the season for the fiber textile production, we could start growing for fiber anywhere between May and harvest around September. For grain industrial hemp, we could start planting that seed outdoor at the latest of July, first week of August.
Mm.
So, what results have you seen from those people that take your own personal products?
I acknowledge everything based on the testimonials and reviews. For example, the gentleman spoke about drug testing. We had a minister that was very concerned about failing the drug test that had been using our products for over 2.5 years. So what I stated to him was, uh, understanding that I grew the plant and I watched and cared for this plant from the beginning to the end, I guaranteed him that he wouldn't fail his drug test. So I basically gave him a friendly wager, a friendly bet, and I stated that if your drug test comes back negative, would you mind allowing me to post your drug test, your analysis on my social media page for our business page at Hempfinity US on Instagram? And he said, "You got a deal." I said, "I won't show your name on the text or your address, of course. Your PPI, I'll make sure that's not showing. But if you fail that drug test, I won't ever have to allow you to buy any of my products, and I guarantee the money back from everything that you purchase."
Right.
throughout the beginning process from 2.5 years ago. So that's how for certain I was that he wasn't going to fail that test. So if you go to our Instagram page at Hempfinity US, you can actually meet the minister and his posts and his drug tests. He passed with flying colors.
All
Nice.
right. All
What
right.
do you feel kind of separates Hempfinity from other CBD companies?
Well, the main thing that I feel that our business separates others is the fact that I'm actually the farmer and the producer as well as the processor. A lot of companies which we supply don't have in-house farming. They don't grow the product, so they have to what we call a white label process, where they will purchase from us in wholesale and then uh, retail that product in their brick and mortar location. Also, our farm also has a retail space. That's a lot of companies don't have a farm and a retail space as well as a processing license. So I think that's what differentiates us because we're a farm that can process from the beginning to the end, and you can trace the product with our processes throughout your purchasing agreement.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, we'll definitely have to put a link to your page so people can pick up your items. I know after
Yes,
this, they're going to want
please.
to because I want
Oh, thank you.
to. Yeah, I really appreciate having you
Okay,
on.
so
Yeah. Go ahead, Anita.
yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and swing to our Q&A segment. So can we bring Miss Rosalind back on to the screen, please? There she is. Okay, so audience, then will be the time if you have any questions to bring them on.
Let's see. Did we answer Lucer's question? Or we'll go over it again. His question is, how can we
There
convince?
was the
He's
thing.
talking about his grandmother. His 90-year-old grandmother has aches and pains, and cannabis would work for her. But she's old school. How can we basically convince her that it's not dope and it would help her? I think we asked that question, but let's ask it again anyway.
Is that question to me? Or?
Sure.
Okay. So just like I have elderly customers, I start them out with a topical cream
Okay.
for geriatrics patients that's dealing with rheumatoid conditions, arthritis, things like that. We have a 500 milligram double concentrated CBD, cannabinoid profile CBD, that handles the endocannabinoid system receptor CP1, which is going to be all of your joints. This particular CBD is a 500 milligram, and I saw them off with a topical suggestion.
Okay.
And they're usually pretty receptive of that.
Absolutely, because is no different than the traditional creams of the past, Bengay and emu oil and things like that.
And you're rubbing those straight onto that joint, right?
Yes, that particular area of discomfort twice a day.
Okay.
I would like to add that that's usually what we tell the elderly to use topicals first before we proceed to anything higher, um, such as edibles or anything else. Edibles usually like the last thing the elderly we try to use. We try to use topical as first.
Mhm.
Okay.
Lucius had another question.
How do we determine or understand the THC percentage cannabinoid content?
How do you?
So basically, every product should come with a certificate of analysis for being lab tested once the product has been created. The COA will identify the level of THC percentage. For example, in my state, we are not even allowed to put our product on the market if it exceeds the threshold of 0.3% THC. So in our state of North Carolina, we wouldn't even be allowed legally to be able to provide a product to the customer base. But however, the backup information would be your certificate of analysis on your last third party analysis test.
Okay.
Okay. So people have to be tested.
Excuse me.
People should be tested prior to their, you said their analysis test?
No. Your analysis test is just your own personal test that a employer may provide. What I'm mentioning is the actual product before we put it on the market. For example, this 1500 THC, I mean, sorry, not THC, 1500 CBD tincture that is a congestible oil that goes under your tongue. This product has to be tested 3 times before it even gets to the market to identify that it is below the threshold of 0.3%.
Mm. So every item that you sell comes with an actual certificate.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, and in our retail store, we have our analysis actually in frames on the wall when the customer comes in, along with our license as well.
because I know a few people who've been interested in these type of products, and their thing is always, well, my employer tests us for this and that, and so I think that's what holds a lot of people back.
Yeah, it's all about misconception and miseducation. You know, not understanding what they're putting into their body because most people that are selling just want to sell. They don't take the time to provide the knowledge and insight of what the product can do for them. Which is, if that was the case, we wouldn't even be in business because it's really not worth it for us to continue to grow it compared to other products that we grow.
So, I guess for both of you, first Patrick, and then Rosalind, the average person hears from their doctor, says, go get cannabis to help you with this. And then they go and research what the nearest dispensary is, and they go there and talk to the bud tender. I mean, that's just like typically how it goes, right? Um, what education can they seek from your companies that could help them so that they would be armed with the best information needed so that when they go to the dispensary, they know what they want or can purchase, of course, from you directly, Patrick?
Yes, so we ask people to go to our website and read up on some of the literature that we provide there first. I think it all comes with education beforehand. I allow my business to be very transparent by providing a email or a contact number where someone can reach out to me if they have any questions. A lot of customers have products in their cart and they just don't know if this is the right one for them. So I vouch for contacting me or my staff to identify to help because at the end of the day, we don't want you to purchase something that is really not what you're looking for because CBD is expensive. So you want to take your time to identify exactly what your issue is. It's almost like having an actual physician to prescribe a product to you before you actually receive it. CBD or any other cannabis can be the same way if you have a company that's willing to take the time to invest in the person that they believe that they can help. Because my slogan is a repeat customer is my best customer. A person that can rely on our company to be with us for the long run as we scale up our business and add more products to our product inventory. It means a lot to us. So I take a lot of pride in dealing with repeat customers.
All right, that same question to you, Rosalind.
So what I do, because I mean, one, I'm a nurse practitioner, so I want to know like why they need to go get medical marijuana. So if it's a pain, if it's insomnia, if it's anxiety, want to know why they're taking it, where their level of knowledge is or use is in marijuana. And what they're trying to accomplish. And so when they see the medical marijuana doc, okay, you can go get medical marijuana. There you go. But they're not being follow up. So that's where we come in to follow up with them and have like a cannabis care plan and actually type up a care plan to actually take to their primary provider. So we can go over like their medications, what we have tried for their ailment, and has it helped? And step by step. Um, so, so one, their primary provider can be on board, or the rheumatologist or psychiatrist, what have you, can be on board to see that one, they are being monitored using medical marijuana, and two, that they're not using it irresponsibly. And just education, and people are afraid to get medical marijuana because it's a stigma, and then also in Florida, is the issue with getting a concealed weapon license and having the medical marijuana license. So it's just education. Yeah.
Lydia had a question. For someone who wanted, and this was actually my question too. For someone who wanted to start a farm or become a processor, what advice would you give to be successful?
Well, for someone that wanted to start a farm, you first have to identify what programs are available in the state that you live in. That tells a lot because some states require more than others. For example, in Virginia, you do not have to have any experience farming in order to obtain a hemp license. In the state of North Carolina, you have to prove that you're a bona fide farmer by showing a Schedule F tax return to show that you have farmed in the past. So my first step to creating a farm to actually just grow industrial hemp, you would need to identify what type of program through your farm service agency that your state has. Um, the other part of the question, to become a processor, is the same thing. Each state is different. In the state of North Carolina, you just have to have a hemp license to have a processor license. In other states, you may not. Both licenses do require a fee. In North Carolina, the fee is $250 for the initial application. Other states may be different. So I guess that is the easiest part. To start a farm, not even dealing with industrial hemp cannabis, but just to grow, you want to grow something in your backyard as an urban garden, or if you have land, you want to take out an acre or a plot of land, you want to generate a farm number and a TAC number. And in order to do that, you would just have to go to your local farm service agency and get your paperwork started.
I think I actually skipped over Lucius' question. His question was: has there been any discussions nationally about making cannabis products legal in every state to avoid all these different rules and regulations?
Of course, but it all ends up being the control of the federal government. In order for cannabis to be legal in all 50 states, they need to show some support from the federal side. Of course, each state makes their own rules and they do not have to be governed by the federal government. However, the federal government needs to identify the plant. The first step was taking it off the Schedule C list, which they did during the Trump administration. So that was the first step. That was a large step. However, I think once the federal government gets in line and where federal government employees can utilize cannabis just like any other person can, then we have to start from there.
That's awesome. Tessa, we do see your comment. Thanks for watching.
And there's one last question. In what situations, Rosalind, are opioids a better remedy than cannabis, if any?
None. None.
But
None.
I would guess so. Patrick shook his head. You shook your head.
Cannabis
None.
can never be addictive.
Right.
Correct. You can never overdose on cannabis.
When would you use the chapstick?
I use
Every day.
I
That's my favorite product.
But like, I'm just saying,
I
like,
can't get enough of it.
but what? Okay, so you just use it, just I don't know. I
It's the
mean, obviously it's
moisturization.
lubricating for your lips, but
Well, for
there's
us, it's an MCT ingredient as well as industrial hemp. Cannabinoid is a sativa concentrated. For this, it moisturizes your lip longer than any Burt's Bees, any chapstick brand, and even any. I would say I've heard women say that it's better than the lip gloss brands that they use that they pay entirely too much money for. So for us, we provide each sale with 2 of these per
Okay.
order. And the Customers love it. I love it. If I don't have any on my lips, I can actually tell that I'm missing it. So it really works for me. It's 25 milligrams of full spectrum total cannabinoid percentage per stick.
Nice.
So I kind of have a stupid question. Um, so the lotion and the chapstick, um, do you just feel it kind of in that area that you put it on? Like if I have a knee issue and I put the lotion on my knee, am I gonna feel the effects there? Or am I gonna feel the effects kind of everywhere? Is it gonna kind of go through my whole body?
So as a part of your ecocannabinoid system, again, everything is tied to your ecocannabinoid system. That's what the receptor of your body intakes the CBD concentration of whatever you may use. And eventually, once it gets into your bloodstream, you'll feel it throughout your entire body, regardless of where you put it in at. But it has to be continued use.
So it's more concentrated in that one spot, but then disperses.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm thinking of it like icy hot or Bengay or something.
Yeah.
Way better than that stuff. That stuff is harmful.
And I tell my clients and my patients that, if they're starting CBD, it's not going to be immediate. It's going to take time. It's fixing you and healing the inflammation. So don't expect, something to happen overnight. Um, that's what I tell my patients.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rosalind and Patrick, for joining us today. We have learned so much from you two, and I am really appreciative of you guys giving us your time. Everyone, thank you for tuning in with us. Tune in with us again in 2 weeks. Connect with us and our businesses on social media. If you're watching after our live session has ended, you can still leave your questions in the comments. If you have any suggestions for other healthcare topics you would like us to cover, then send it to us in a DM and we'll be happy to explore those options. Until next time, we hope you stay well. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.